Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Satan and Coffee. I hope you guys are having a wonderful fucking morning. This wonderful sin day. Happy sin day, everybody. Good to see everybody here. Land-based magic, disciple, Maeve. Good to see everybody. See everybody. So, shall we get started? What is up, everyone? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. A little bit of a late start, but totally worth it. Needed to make sure my coffee was good to go. Got some amazing Colombian roast with some hazelnut creamer, tree sap. Welcome. God, that's good. Two things that the Colombians do flawlessly, and both of them give you good amounts of energy. I hope everyone is doing well. So this morning, the title of this morning's episode is "Wake from Death." Hence the right? And what we're going to be talking about in today's episode is, well, toxicity in interpersonal relationships and how to use that, coming out of that, and what it means, coming out of that. And it's an extra long episode because there's a lot of points to cover, right? So it's very much kind of focused on the idea of kind of like cutting off dead weight. It's the idea, infernally cutting off dead weight, like spiritually, how to take, something like gaslighting, toxicity in a relationship, and how to fuel self spiritually and kind of like what comes after, right? So you went through the situation, realized that you need to come out of the situation, and what needs to be done coming out of the situation, right? That's kind of like the focal point for this morning is what we're going to be talking about. And it's very much kind of like really dark in here, like cloud cover, crazy. Like it just went, oof. Um, so I think we've all been there, right? You've been told, everything's your fault, even though it's not. You know, you had somebody in your life rewrite reality until you doubted your own sanity. They convinced you that your light was a shadow and your truth a lie. But here's the thing, they were never gods or masters, they were parasites. And this morning, we're going to be cutting off that dead weight and we're going to burn their ghosts out of our marrow. Okay? So we're going to be talking about gaslighting, manipulation, awakening, success as inevitable revenge, and invoking infernal powers, specifically Lucifer, Paimon, Belial, and Baphomet, is what we're going to be looking at in today's episode. All right. So, first thing, the obvious thing to talk about, right, is the gaslighting, right? Gaslighting and chains of false narratives. Okay. And here's the thing, like gaslighting isn't just like lying, it's theft of personal reality, right? Gaslighting goes beyond simple lying. It is an attempt to steal your reality, your perception of reality. It is an attempt to mold and form your reality to somebody else's ideals, to how somebody else sees things or wants things to be, regardless of what the actual objective truth is, right? In raw terms, gaslighting is consistent manipulation until you doubt your perceptions. And I'm sure all of us have been there. I know that I was for a very long time, uh, brought to believe that everything I did, regardless of what it was wrong, that the way that I dressed was, you know, wrong because it didn't suit my age. That I shouldn't dress the way that I dress, that I shouldn't listen to the music that I listen to, that I shouldn't, do a lot of things that I do, like playing video games or, the artwork that I made always had some type of other meaning behind it outside of inspiration that was drawn from it, right? Like I get a lot of inspiration for a lot of the artwork that I do from songs that I listen to or movies that I watch. And then I create something that kind of reflects that. And that was always twisted and knotted and thrown back at me for, being having some other meaning behind it. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. Right. So these are aspects of gaslighting. These are all gaslighting, right? Somebody has an idea in their head of what something means, and then they force it on you. It's like, no, this is what it means. This is what you're doing. And it's so repetitious that you begin to believe it. You begin to, maybe I am too old to be dressing the way that I dress. Maybe I am too old to be listening to the music that I listen to, or watching the movie that I watch, or, creating the art that I make, or what have you, right? Those are all forms of gaslighting, and that's just gaslighting that I've endured. There are so many more um, types of gaslighting that are thrown out there. Uh, so if you grab onto like kind of like romantic examples, right? So your partner's cheating, but convincing you they're paranoid, right? I mean, that's the most popular one, right? Family examples, narcissistic parent convincing you you're ungrateful, right? An example with friends sabotaging you, then calling you toxic when you pull away, right? That is something that Dyra has gone through with a friend, um, with Dyra setting boundaries, that friend turner saying that something that's not. So, and gaslighting isn't just corrosive to the personal mind. It's not just corrosive to the self, but it's also corrosive spiritually, right? It is spiritually corrosive. Okay, it makes you distrust the only compass that matters, your own perception of reality, right? Gaslighting doesn't just fuck with you psychologically, doesn't just fuck with you physiologically, like with the cortisol, your cortisol levels constantly being up and things like that. But when it does manage to do what it's designed to do, which is make you doubt yourself, especially when it comes to the left hand path, that is something so detrimental to our path work, is doubting yourself and doubting like your own perception of reality and what's real is so detrimental to the path, to the growth. It will set you back. Um, Gaslighting is definitely one of the first things that you kind of begin to notice. And gaslighting usually only works when someone segregates you from your family. And so personally, I mean, that's definitely something that I kind of went through, right? And obviously somebody that's good at manipulation in the sense, right? Evie, welcome, hail. Um, Somebody that's good at like separating you from your family and things like that. They're not going to tell you. Like we look at it kind of like directly saying, "Oh, well, you can't talk to dot 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 dot." It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, right? Because that's too obvious. It works like, oh well, I don't like this person because of this reason. I don't like this person because of that reason. And I would never tell you not to do this or that. But, I just think, it's not good, for you because of this thing that happened and that thing that happened. And you begin to sit there and you begin to think, well, maybe I shouldn't be talking to these people. right? Maybe I shouldn't be talking to my family. Maybe I shouldn't have any friends, right? Because I know for me, like every single time that I would find any type of friendship, right, it would come back at me. Well, no, well, I don't like this person because of that reason, and because of this reason, and because of that reason. And you probably shouldn't, be, like I don't like having this person in my house. So, you can do what you want, but not in this house. And it's like, what am I, 15? Because if you feel like you don't know who you are or what you want, then you are exactly. And the thing is it happens in small bits. It's like it's a micro thing. It's a micro thing that happens, right? Um, and so there are things that like they constantly like they nitpick and they attack, and what that does is that breaks you down, right? That kind of starts to break down your identity and who you think you are, right? That you have to present a certain way. Because I remember in the worst part of the situation that I'm talking about, um, I would look in the mirror and I didn't know who the fuck I was looking at. Like I didn't know who I was looking at in the mirror. I was dressing like a way that I would never openly choose to dress. I would never choose to dress the way that I was dressing. And I had very much like set my spirituality to the wayside. Like it was just like on the back burner. Like it was there, but I never did anything, you know, with it. It was like something that I believed in, but like passively, right? And so I very much, it turned into like little aesthetic pieces, like having a skull here and there in an outfit, or a pentagram or a pentacle or something, on, you know, my person. And it was, yeah, honestly, I would have to say it wasn't until I actually got back into my spiritual working, um, that I set up an altar again and I started doing actual altar work, that like I really kind of opened up my eyes. And the thing is I definitely have to attribute primarily Lucifer and Baphomet with that reawakening. um it was definitely we're first working with Baphomet for kind of like rebalancing myself, um and then the work with Lucifer to kind of show me like what am I missing here, like why do I feel the way that I feel, why do I feel so taken advantage of, why do I feel so empty, so hollow, like why do I feel like a lesser version of myself, like what is happening, what did I miss, right? And the problem is a lot of us, many of us have suffered trauma in the past, and with this it feels very familiar. And so regardless of that familiarity being something inherently negative, within that familiarity we feel at home, and we want to stay in that situation regardless of how much our conscious mind, or at least our subconscious mind, understands that the situation that we are in is not healthy. And so it wasn't until I really kind of dived into the work with Lucifer that like that truly kind of opened up to me. Like I began to realize things. And you know I know we have this love hate obsession with physical manifestation when it comes to you know the infernal. But the fact of the matter is the manifestation that takes place most of the time is a reawakening or realigning of the mind to be able to understand things that you previously couldn't understand, because I began to kind of notice certain things that didn't make sense to like why I was allowing myself to be, the way that I was being. And, as I kind of began to come back into myself, dressing the way that I wanted to dress, listening to the music that I wanted to listen to, you know, creating the art that I wanted to create, the what I felt inside of myself, creating the content that I wanted to make. I began to kind of open and realize I have completely I almost went through like what I would call kind of like a metaphorical unaliving, right? Like a metaphorical suicide, because everything that I was, everything that defined me as who I am as a person was gone. And when I realized that, like when I finally kind of looked in the mirror and I'm like, what happened? Like where did all of this die and why? And then as I began to kind of, you know, come back into myself, the gaslighting was so much more prominent, so much more obvious, right? As I began to kind of start dressing, the way that I wanted to dress again, uh, coloring my hair, shit like that. Um, that gaslighting came right back at me. But that at this point now, I was ready for it. I was like, identify it, right? Because each little thing that I did, I was attacked for. You know, if I painting my nails, I was called things that I can't say on YouTube. But I was called certain things, for doing that. I was called for certain things for uh, coloring my hair, for dressing again. I started to buy stuff from Killstar and Janko jeans, stuff like that. And there were certain comments that were made regarding all of that stuff. But then at that point, because of the work with Lucifer, my mind was ready, kind of identify as like, see what you're doing, and you're not going to win this time. And that was complete breakdown of the situation, right? And so I was able to come back to myself because of my spirituality. My spirituality had really fallen into the background. And I don't think I was able to catch on to everything that was going on because my spirituality fallen so far, behind. And it wasn't just like, that one relation. There were several relationships that I had going on at that time, friendships and otherwise, that were the same way. Like there were several people that were kind of like echoing these ideas, um, across. So it's another thing that didn't help, because here's another thing. We also think that like gaslighting happens in a singular instance. And usually what happens is if you were in a relationship, if we're talking romantically, if you're in a relationship and you're allowing somebody gaslight you, in a relationship, chances are there are other relationships that you have in your life, family or friends, that are echoing these ideas, that are furthering this. And it makes it exceedingly more difficult to identify, you know, that you're being gaslit when you have multiple people echoing the same idea, because then you really start to sit there and go, well, wait, well, maybe I am wrong. Maybe, me being me wrong. Maybe me as I am, as who I am, is wrong. And that is the worst thing that can happen, is for you to feel or believe that you or your existence is wrong. Really good at figuring. Find it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, land-based magic. I mean, well, it's more like a kick in the ass, right? Like it's like a ton of bricks hitting you. And Lucifer was definitely it. Um, because I had just kind of started kind of getting back into the groove of who I was as a person, how I identified myself as a person. Right. And excuse me. And I remember that first ritual with Lucifer. It's when my eyes started to bleed and aware. And nobody could figure out, what was going on. And I feel like there was some multiple mixed messaging that kind of went with that, right? There was this idea of, you know, this is real, this is reality, this is manifestation. You- Like you're not on the wrong path, right? It was definitely like a physical kind of like pull, like, hey, what you're thinking is true. This is actually happening. And, you know, so in that time period, I feel like who I was laid to rest. Like the original version of myself was kind of laid to rest. And then there's this shell created for the benefit of those around me, which was not me. And then that version of myself was laid to rest, was destroyed. I destroyed that version of myself. And as I kind of resurrected that previous version of myself, it wasn't so much a resurrection as much as a rebirth of a new version of me as a whole. And the remains of the previous two versions were still there, but in a sense of learning. And it was definitely, like I said, Lucifer and Baphomet that really kind of helped with that, like Belial and, um, Paimon. Paimon definitely come in afterwards, with reinforcement. And again, my work with Belial is limited, but there's definitely, that one major ritual that I did with Belial uh, last year was definitely the last year. No, it was the year before that. It was 2023, the end of 2023, I think. Um, that I did, that ritual with Belial, and that ritual with Belial, I really think was kind of like the major breakthrough on just saying, you know, the true, like, hail thyself moment, right? And I believe that extensive work with Belial is definitely something that a lot of people should look into. But if you really want like a major upheaval in your life, all you need is one. All you need is one. All you need is one ritual, and it will blow open the floodgates like nothing else. I can attest to that. I can say from personal experience, for as anecdotal as it might be, I will echo what everyone else says about working with Belial or giving reverence to Belial. All you need is one. All you need is one. Like I sat there and I thought, well, Belial didn't reach out. I didn't get anything back during the ritual. Like I've said that a million times. I did ritual with Belial and I didn't get back. But it was after that ritual with Belial that everything just blew open in my life. Like every limitation, every blockage, every stop just blew open. Right. And if you really want dramatic change in your life, all you need is one. I'm being complete. All you need is one ritual with Belial, blow the floodgates open. Okay, so that was the first segment. So that was us talking about gaslighting, which is like the main thing that we always talk about. Like when we talk about toxicity in relationships, friendships, and things like that, we talk about gaslighting. Now, the next part is, cutting the dead weight, right? Um, the severance must be ruthless, ritualistic, and final when we cut off dead weight, right? Dead weight isn't just people, it's the old story they built around you, right? Like it's the whole thing. It's dead weight is everything built that's built around you. Um, oh, just got a notification, didn't, and now it makes less sense because it just says updating. Okay. Um, this is how you know it's live, guys. This is how you know it's live. There's so much built around us, right? That we build entire worlds around us, like with the people that we allow into our lives, our friends, our family, our interpersonal, romantic relationships. We build kingdoms around these things, right? We build temples and ideals and hopes and dreams. And the worst part about this stuff is when you realize that you've been building alone and that the ideas that you had in your mind are not the things that you had originally hoped that they were going to be. And the hardest part about cutting off that dead weight is letting these structures, these monoliths in our mind, letting them crumble like the tower. It's the hardest part, right, of the whole thing is letting it burn. Right? It is the most difficult aspect, you know, of rebuilding because there's a certain level of comfort that we feel with these things. And when we know we have to let our comfort go and we have to let the tower burn, it's difficult for us to see beyond the destruction and realize that from the ashes of that we can rebuild. And especially like this especially happens like the older you get, right? Like so the older you are, the more difficult it is to believe that there's a possibility or a hope for you to rebuild something. And so you try to hold on to these structures, these monoliths, these ideals that you build in your mind. We try to hold on to these things so tightly. And it is those very things that are tearing us apart because we want to move on from the past. We want to grow, but we can't. We can't fully do it because we're still holding on to the bricks and mortar that were used in that construction. And it isn't until we fully understand or allow ourselves to kind of flow in and say, we need to let the tower do what it's got to do. We need to let the tower fall. It served its purpose. It served its time. But we can't save it. We need to let the tower burn. We need to let the tower and everything in it go. Very little of what I have today is exactly disciple, spiritual rebirth, and not even just spiritual, like physical one. Very little of what I have today is anything that I had 2 years ago. Like, very much a very literal thing here happened where much of my possessions, my material possessions of my life, when I went to England, I left here in Mexico. I mean, I grabbed my favorite articles of clothing, and a few things of electronics that I could take with me, as far as like my computer, because that's where my work is based. And then everything else is gone. My everything that I used on my previous altar, like my altar today, is very different from what my altar used to be. And that is something that is at the time, it was disheartening, because there was a lot that I had, that I was like, well, now I have to rebuild everything, right? Like, I mean, furniture, personal belongings, tool, like everything, and I can tell you that I don't miss it. I don't miss those things. Like, there's a lot of things that I'm like, oh, that's gone. I'm never going to get that back, and, whatever. But most of everything that I have today is part of my new life, my new being, my new existence. It's a rebuilding of everything that, I had in the past. And I legitimately believe that there's no better way of rebuilding yourself after your tower falls, is when the tower begins to fall. You need to take you yourself, and that's it, out of the tower, and let everything in it burn. Building yourself from square one is harder than people think. Soul searching, which can take years. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And a lot of, you know, what I'm doing today, is just that. Is I'm rebuilding from square one. We came into this house. This house was guts. There was nothing in it. There was a bed. That was it. There's no refrigerator. There's no washing machine. There was no appliances, no table, no sofa, no nothing. Nothing in this house. And, Dyra and I are, both of us are building from square one in this place. We are going from zero to what we feel, reflects us and who we are, and, what we want to be together. And the thing that I realized during this process was the cutting of the dead weight. Like, I needed to let that past burn, and it's hard. It's hard to do. It's hard to watch the tower fall. It's terrifying. Like, a lot of people, like when they talk tarot, a lot of people are afraid of the devil, or the death card, or, things like that. Or even, like, I think it's like the Seven of Swords or Nine of Swords or whatever. Like, people are afraid of those cards because, they represent, some of them represent rebirth, some of them represent strife, difficulties, whatever. But, like, the hardest card, not the most terrifying, but the hardest card, the hardest process in the tarot, I find, is the tower, watching the tower burn, watching the old burn away, to allow you to rebuild. And the reason it's the most difficult is because people like to try to focus on, like, the positive side of that card, which is like, well, if something is being destroyed, that means something could be created, but you still have to go through the destruction. You still have to escape the tower, because you can still burn with the tower if you refuse to leave those things behind. If you refuse to let go of the things in the tower, as the tower falls, you can go down. You can still go down with the ship, because your actions are not mirroring what needs to be happening. You're holding on, and that sinking ship will take you down with it. It will suck you in, and you will never get out. It'll drag you down to the bottom of the fucking ocean. And, you know, realizing in that moment that I needed to let go of everything, the level of anxiety that I felt, I don't think my cortisol levels have ever been as high as they were in that moment. I really don't. Like, so much inside of me said, don't. And I did it anyway. And I don't regret it. I simply don't. I don't regret it. You know, everything inside of me, you know, and this is another thing too, because we constantly talk about, listening to your gut feeling, right? And usually your gut is a pretty good thing to listen to. But you have to also take into consideration if you've built this entire monolithic system around something that doesn't represent you, that doesn't fully encompass who you are. And your internals are telling you, hold on to this thing. Should you really hold on to it? Or should you, in that moment, listen to the smallest voice inside of you that says, this is what you need? You need to let go of this. You need to blaze a trail here. Everything is falling apart around you. You need to create new connections here. You need to sever these old nerve responses and create new ones. And the only way that you can do that is let the tower and everything in it burn to the ground and never look back. Because there are moments where when the tower burns, it's not rebuilding with the remains of the tower. It's finding a new place, build a better one with a better foundation that's more stable, that's stronger, that can withstand the things that are going to happen in life. Because we're not just in these situations and these cases that we're talking about today, we're not just letting the tower burn and then turning around and going back and trying to rebuild it again. The ground was weak. The foundation was horribly built. Sometimes we need to allow these monoliths of the past to exist only in the past and be a lesson of learning and growth and understanding to build something better and stronger as time moves on. And that's also hard to do because our instinct is to go back and see what remains of what was. What pieces can we pick up? Sometimes that's not an option, nor should it be. It should be left where it rests as a reminder of what we tried and what didn't work, to allow ourselves the space and ability to create something that we weren't able to create before. And if we try to use the old foundations, if we try to use the old bricks and mortar, we are inevitably recreating the stance and circumstance that we were in previously. We are building new on old foundations that have been proven to be rot and rife with imbalance. And As we know with Baphomet, balance is key. One of the primary things that we notice with the tower is not just in a storm of destruction, but cockeyed and falling over. The foundations have broken. So we need to learn to kind of sometimes, we're not rebuilding in the same place. We need to rebuild someplace new. And sometimes it takes time to find where that place is. Sometimes you need to wander a little bit. You need to kind of walk different paths and find where things went wrong and find a new ground that maybe isn't swamp, maybe isn't, so uneven, and build a better foundation and take your time this time with the foundation. Focus on the foundation. Focus on it. Make sure that it's level. Make sure that it's solid. Make sure that it's completely dried concrete before you start to build on it. And as you build, begin to build slower. You build one level and you let it settle. And then you build another level. You let that settle. And you begin to build this new tower, this new monolithic structure of self in a way that you've never built before. But in a way that guarantees that you're doing it the right way. And so, yes, the tower is a hearkening of new things to come. But the difficult part of the tower is letting it go and letting it get destroyed and letting it fall down and letting it burn and leaving the shit inside of it. Leaving the skeletons in the closets of the tower as it burns. You've faced those demons before. You've faced those demons for years. There's no necessity to bring them with you and continue to face them. They're already part of you. Okay. Exactly, Trisat. Brick by brick. Slow but surely, right? It's taking time and doing what needs to be done and building a foundation that is resilient. One level at a time, and let the foundation settle. And the next level, and let the foundation settle. Because it takes longer, but the monument that exists at the end of that work is a monument that will stand the test of time. And I do believe that, in most of our lives, the first tower that we build, the first monolith of self that we build is always a temporary. Now, the next part that we're going to get into here is success as unintentional revenge. Now, why do I say success as unintentional revenge? Because when we talk about toxicity, when we talk about bad relationships, whether that's family or friends or romantic relationships, we constantly hear this thing is that the best revenge that you can have is your own success. And I believe that there's an inherent problem with this statement. And the reason I believe that there's an inherent problem with this statement is because this statement infers the idea that the reason we are being successful, the reason we seek success after a bad situation with other people, is with the intention of exacting revenge on those people instead of our own success, like the focus being us. Do I agree that, like, the best revenge that you can get on someone is your own success? Yes, I do. Do I believe that that should be the reason you're successful? Fuck no. I believe that if you are trying to be successful with the intention of fucking with someone else, then you're not doing it for yourself. You're not focused on yourself. You're still in the past. You're still at that old tower. Right? If you're doing anything today because of something back then, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Anything you do today, if you do something good for yourself today, and you didn't do something good for yourself because it's good for you, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Give me a second here, everybody. So, sorry, just, the mother-in-law. It just sounds so cold. The mother-in-law. It's my mother-in-law. But if you do anything today because you want to affect something from your past, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You need to focus on yourself. You need to focus on you, right? The best revenge is not revenge, it's evolution. It's evolutionary growth of self. When you rise, the narrative dies, and you should allow it to die. When you become the version of yourself that you want to be for you. You don't need to do anything for someone else. You only need to do it for you. Second. Okay. So if your ex says you'd never make it, right, and years later you're thriving and they're still bitter, you didn't chase them, you outgrew them. You didn't do it because of them, but your own success will make them bitter, right? If, somebody told you that, you're in a new relationship is this and your relationship is that, and it'll never work, and this, that, and the next thing. Um, and you turn around in your relationship, your new relationship, your new everything, it's everything that it could be and that you wanted it to be, and you're doing well, and your ex is obsessed with, trying to slander you and make you seem like a piece of shit, this, that, and the next thing. let them live the way that they want to live. Samael, ill. Good to see you, brother. Let them continue. Let them go the way that they're going. Don't focus on it. Don't listen to it. It's none of your business anymore. Right? They're the ones that can't move on. And that's the big thing, right? Is like, I mean, if you notice, like, usually when you get out of a toxic relationship, right? The the one that was the problem is usually the one that can't let go of shit, right? Is the one that can't move on, can't move forward, can't grow, right? And it's interesting to see. You need to allow yourself, to I really need to like put my phone on silent or like airplane mode when I do this. Like I'm usually don't get blown up, and I'm getting blown up right now. Fucking crazy. But your success should have nothing to do with things from the past. Your success should not be a focal point, or your reasoning for your success, your reasoning for your happiness shouldn't be somebody else's unhappiness, right? Exactly. You know, um, like removing the power they stole. Exactly. And if you're doing anything in your life, anything at all, if you're doing anything in your life because of, the people in your past, then they still have power. They still have power. So, it's definitely, I really go away. You need to not allow them to have that power. Don't do anything today because you want somebody from then to be affected by it. It's that simple. And I'm sorry if I keep repeating myself, but I keep getting these fucking messages and it keeps like throwing me off track, and it's really starting to irritate me. Like I'm in like an ADHD hyper focus with this episode, and people sending me messages, and I'm like, leave me alone. So it keeps throwing me back, right? And it's just starting to kind of like irk me to a point of like I really just want to throw my phones against a fucking wall. Oh, right. The frustration is so real when you break out of that focus, right? When somebody pulls you out of that, it's like, what did you do? It's like fucking. It's like the most blasphemous thing you could do, right? Like I feel like I got such a good role going on this episode, and like I'm so focused on everything that we're doing and that what we're talking about, and I think it's so relevant. And then people are just like, and like they're asking me to do shit, and it's making my mind think about what they want me to do, and I'm like, it's like no, this needs to be the focus. Um, so I'm trying to come back to it. So this isn't about proving them wrong, it's about proving yourself right, right? That's the focal point here. It's not about proving someone else wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And by proving yourself right, you inherently prove the other person wrong without the focus be proving them wrong. As long as the focus is proving yourself right, yes, I can do this. Yes, I can be successful at this. Yes, I can, these things. I'm proving myself right. I'm giving myself power here, self empowerment. That inherently proves, if that inherently proves somebody else wrong, then so be it. Which is why success should be unintentional revenge. Your intention should not be, and we always talk about intention in magic, right? We always talk about intention. Intention is very important. Your intention should never be to prove someone else wrong. Your intention should never be, I'm going to do this because this person told me I can't. Your intention should always be, I'm going to do this because I said I can. I'm going to be successful at this because I know I can be successful at this. I'm going to do these things because this is what I want for me. And that is the most left-hand path fucking thing that you can do. So never align your success in your betterment for the bitterness of someone else. Never do that. Ever do that. Your past should play no role in the decisions that you make today, in the sense of your past being the motivator for your present. Your now should be the only motivator that you have for yourself. Lucifer doesn't need vengeance. His rebellion was the victory. Let me say that again. Lucifer doesn't need vengeance. His rebellion was his victory. His decision to do what he wanted to do for him, for the betterment of self, was the victory in and of itself. With Paimon, incorporate Paimon into this finally, right? A kingly presence, mastery of influence, commanding respect without even looking back at the betrayers. Your movement forward without looking back, without going into like the detail of the tower falling behind you. Don't watch the tower fall, just let it fall. Just let it burn. You don't have to watch the destruction happen. You can move forward. You know that the tower is falling. You know it's time. You can feel it. You know that it's time. Allow yourself to move forward. Allow yourself the ability to move past the destruction. Grow. And so now what we're going to get into here is kind of like a section where I call kind of like the infernal allies in the reclamation process, right? So if we look at Lucifer, start with Lucifer, the harsh mirror, right? He tears away illusion. When you've been gaslit, Lucifer reveals the naked truth. No, you're not insane. They are. His light burns away falsehood and empowers gnosis. Invocation, meditation, ask Lucifer to show you what was true and what was poison. And I would even go as far as saying that the other, aspect of Lucifer, Samael, would be also good and work with in conjunction. Like I would use the whole infernal triptych here. I would work with Samael, Lucifer, and Satan. Each aspect of Lucifer there for this process. Right? Samael, poison of the gods, it's to identify the poisoning nature, where the poison's coming from. Lucifer, to find the path to away and get out and see the difference. And then the anger, aggression, and just primal nature of Satan, to force yourself to burn out, the burn out of it. I would use the whole triptych in this. I would. I feel biased in that. No, I mean it's fine. It's fine. I mean I have, Samael and Lilith right above the here. I think that, two aspects of Lucifer that I work with the most is Lucifer and Samael. And again, I know that this is like confusing when I say Lucifer, right? Lucifer is, I see Lucifer, Samael, Lucifer, and Satan are the same, but they're just kind of different aspects of the same entity. That's why I call it the infernal triptych, right? Like is those three as one. And each one is an aspect that you can call on, right? I know I've explained this like a million times, but I feel like I have to every single time because like it's just kind of, I know it's confusing to people. And you can treat them as separate entities. I mean, that's fine if that's what works for you. That's great. But I do feel that, like, we're calling on the same thing here, right? I think Samael is more refined. Um, there's more control in Samael, more obedience in Samael, right? Prior to the rebellion, because Samael has always been kind of said to be angelic named Lucifer. Lucifer being kind of like the rebellious aspect, right? The truth bearer. It's when Samael understood, the lies of his creation, and he grew into rebellion. He becomes Lucifer. And when he's cast out and he falls and he descends, he becomes Satan, which is not pure rage and anger. It's not uncontrolled. It's very methodical. But it is the accumulation of the three becoming one. And the aspect that I work with the most is Lucifer, because I feel that Lucifer is that middle ground between the obedience and the full on rebellion. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. Like, I mean, that's how I see it. That's how I've worked with it. That's how it works for me. I'm not taking any, literal um, biblical pull out here or anything like that. It's just how I've come to understand through my work with Lucifer and things like that, how I've come to understand this. Because Lucifer, with my work with Lucifer, Lucifer is many, not just one. That's the one thing that I come to understand, right? Is I wouldn't necessarily say that the comment of I am legion is accurate, but I am many, right? I mean, the full statement is I am many among the few. So when my understanding of that, gnosis, my gnosis is that is the triptych, right? So continuing forward here with our infernal allies. So that was Lucifer. So we go and come into Paimon now. Paimon, right? So the throne of command after manipulation strips your voice. Paimon restores authority, charisma, and command of your own narrative. Hail King Paimon, right? That level of command of self comes back, Paimon. Speaking rituals, invoking Paimon before public speaking, job interviews, or difficult conversations where you reclaim your voice. Paimon plays a pivotal role in the reconstruction of self, the confidence of self, regaining the belief of self after destruction happens. So never underestimate. A lot of people think that, Paimon is only for um, artistic endeavors and things like that. And I can promise you that Paimon um, plays a much more pivotal role in the reclamation of self than many people would like to give him credit for. So that's definitely something that I would focus on if you are in a process. Right? Belial, the destroyer of false authority. Belial cuts every leash. He forces accountability, yours and theirs. And his lesson is you are either king or slave. You choose. And like I said, one ritual with Belial is all you need to get the ball rolling, and it will roll hard. You want to talk about snowballing? It is a destructive force that forces recreation. Um, there's no one else that I could suggest anyone working with if you want dramatic change in your life. You want to dramatic wake up. Belial, right? Belial workings in court cases, legal freedom, or breaking family cycles, breaking away from something, allowing yourself the strength. I mean, my work with Belial, the ritual that I did with Belial was right before, you know, leaving Mexico. And there was definitely the necessity for to have like the gall to let that tower burn and just break away, right? Not now, disciple. Not now. Read the room, my friend. Read the room. I appreciate so much your attendance in all of these, but read the room, buddy. Like, there's a time and place for everything. Right now is not the time nor the place to be asking me which tarot card is my favorite. Like, I'm not. I'm sorry. Like, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Um, I really don't. I appreciate your attendance, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate your conversation and your questions. I really do. But just, you know, there's a time and place for everything. I will answer that question at the end of the show. Please remind me, and I will answer it at the end of the show. Because it's those types of questions that when I read the chat, it throws me off base of what I'm focusing on. Right? So thank you for the question, but save it for the end. Okay? Thank you. So that's Belial, right? So with Belial, I think like when everything was kind of starting to fall down, fall apart, um, I really needed to have like that push to let go of everything that I was letting go of. Right? There were obviously things that I couldn't let go of, that I didn't want to let go of, that I wouldn't let go of. Right? And examples is my son. Right? But you know, letting go of everything in your past doesn't mean abandoning family that need you. It means letting go of the things that are holding you back. Right. And I think a lot of people also get this confused and try to use this as a point of gaslighting. They try to use this as a point of redirection. Right. Um, and within the point of redirection, what you're looking at, right, is understanding that letting go of your past doesn't inherently mean, letting go of family, right? Like if you have like a child or something, right? Like, people I know there's certain people that are probably going to watch this and like, yeah, he abandoned his kid. I never abandoned my child. I never abandoned my child. Um Leaving for 7 months and coming back is not abandonment. And then, you know, I was abandoned as a child. My dad walked out when I was 6 and he never turned around. He never came back. There wasn't a birthday card. There wasn't a phone call. There wasn't anything. Nothing. Threshold doesn't mean to say goodbye to the place you were once, but to accept where you are now. Exactly. Exactly. Dino. Dr. Dino. That's a good point. That's a good way to say it. Very eloquently put. Thank you for that. You know, yes, you let the tower burn. Yes, you leave the past in the past, but you allow the aspects of your past to burn that need to burn in order to move forward to where you need to go to build the better version of yourself while trying to bring with you, the people that you bring with you. Right? And I know that that might sound slightly contradictory to what I've been saying, but there are aspects of, you know, that are past, present, and future. Like if you have a kid, it is your past, present, and your And that's not something that gets let go of. That's not something that gets left in the tower, not a part of the tower. The tower is a metaphor for the aspects of yourself that you need to let burn, and you leave those aspects of yourself in the past. Hoping that this makes sense. Now, Baphomet, we move into Baphomet, balance and integration. After the cut, after the burn, Baphomet is the synthesis, not healing in the soft sense, but transforming shadow into strength. He shows that your scars are part of your sovereignty, right? So these are all the infernal aspects that I think are most important to work through, work with, or revere during this time period. Lucifer, Belial, Satan, and Paimon, Belial, Baphomet, right? Ritual with Baphomet, where you trace your scars, emotional or physical, and declare them emblems of your becoming. You declare them to be part of you. Part of removing the past is integration. Integration doesn't mean that it becomes a focal point. Integration means, yes, this happened. Yes, this is part of me. This is why I am who I am today. This is why I'm choosing to go the direction that I'm. This is why I'm choosing to grow because of this past. Yes, disciple, exactly. Like the fool. Very good. That's excellent. Yes, 100%. Right? The fool and the magician definitely play a role here. We're talking tarot cards. Because I keep mentioning the tower, right? So definitely. Even I would say death even plays a part in this. The death card would play a part in this because death, the death of the old and the rebirth. I think we would be looking at, you know, both, the tower, death as kind of like interconnected in this process, right? First the tower, then death, then the fool. We're doing a 3-card roll. Rising from the ashes. The aftermath is not silence, it's empire building. Person leaving a gaslit relationship and starting their own business, art or path, and thriving. How every time you succeed, you rewrite the script that was imposed on you. Every time you become more, every time you grow and you become successful at something, you are rewriting an idea that was pushed on you, who and what you are. You become your true self. Hail thyself. That's why that's the motto of the channel. My motto, hail thyself. Revere all the entities you want, but the one thing that you should always worship most of all is yourself. Always. In Jung's individuation, recognizing manipulation as shadow projections and reclaiming the self is also a psychological aspect that needs to be looked at when we go into this and when we talk about this. Carl Jung, Jungian psychology, and the concept of individuation is so important in this process. Because when you can recognize manipulation as shadow projections, when somebody's trying to manipulate you and they're projecting their shadow onto you, you allow yourself the ability to reclaim who you are. You don't heal from betrayal, you weaponize it and you rise through it. Right? I don't believe that healing is this soft, squishy idea of, you know, letting go of things and being a softer version of yourself. I believe that you need to weaponize your betrayals. I believe that weaponizing the spirit is so important in life. And not weaponizing in the way of going on the offensive, but allowing yourself to learn from the past and to identify things that might allow something like that to happen again. I think that that is extremely important to be able to identify that. Um, and I think through the left hand path, through the infernal work and the psychological work, we can identify that we don't need to heal from the betrayal. We need to evolve and grow from it. It's a part of us. We were betrayed, we abused, we were gaslit, we were taken advantage of. And we need to take that ideal, that idea, and just grow from it. Allow ourselves to grow. Stop focusing on the past. Stop trying to find ways to exact revenge and allow your growth and your evolution to be without the intention of revenge. Because if your focus and if your obsession and your intention is to exact revenge, then your success is just as toxic as the situation that you got out of. So to truly move forward, you allow yourself to grow, to evolve for the betterment of yourself. And if the person in the past is bitter and angry and upset because of your evolution, because of your growth, because of your success, then that's on them. But that's not your focus. You're not continuing the pattern. Pattern recognition is key. It's a life lesson, not a sentence from your past. Very good, Dino. Very good, Dino. The Dino, Dino? Do you want Dino, Dino? Like, like Dino, like dinosaur Dino? From, I mean, I don't know if I'm like, giving away my age here, but, you know, Flintstones, Dino, purple dinosaur. Is it like that, or is it Dino, like Dino Nug? Just asking. That was a very ADHD question, wasn't it? So allow yourself. Ink alligator, crocodile, whatever the fuck it is. um, Definitely allow yourself. Okay. Um, allow yourself that growth, because here's also the other thing, because like if you try to grow and evolve and become better with the intention of it being vengeance, and the person doesn't react the way that you feel you want them to react to what is happening in your life, then you're not going to be fulfilled, because your intention isn't improvement, your intention is damage. And if you don't cause the damage through your success that you want to cause, then your success isn't going to be fulfilling to you, and then you begin a ruthless cycle of allowing that person to have that power and that control over you still. So allow your success to be your success and be fulfilled in your success. And if it so happens to be that that person in the past despises your success and is pulling their hair out, then so be it. But don't look back to see if they're doing it. And I think that that's the point that I'm trying to get at here. What they do or do not do through your evolution and your success is of no concern or consequence to you. Let them be and exist where they exist and continue to exist where they have always existed. And allow yourself space and affordability to grow, evolve, and become more than what you ever could have been previously and prior. For the sake of your evolution and your own betterment, your intention should be self, not those around you. That is the point. That is the growth focus. And so long as your evolution and your growth and your success is your intention, then all your growth will be fulfilling to you, regardless of how the past views your present and your future. And exactly, Trisep, I'm too busy looking forward to give a shit about what's happening behind me. Exactly. 100%. 100%. So I think some ritual work, if anybody is trying to grow past a cracking and tumbling tower, some work that can be done. Write down the lies that you were told. You're worthless. You're crazy. You'll never make it. Invoke Lucifer and Belial. Burn those words. Invoke Paimon. Amen. Speak aloud the truth of who they are and who you are. Sit with Baphomet. Accept that the scar is permanent, but so is the throne. Your success is not revenge. It is the crown they swore you'd never wear. And now you wear it in fire. That's what it is. Let go of your pride. It's a hard thing in this life because pride can hold. Yeah. I mean, I also think pride can move you forward as well. Like, it depends on how much pride you're talking about, how much pride you have. And to answer your question, disciple, my favorite card in the tarot deck is Death. It's always been my favorite card. Some more than others because of the design, but Death is the rebirth, not the ending. Right? Death is change. Change, I think, is the most important thing. Things always change. You are always changing. Your things around you are always changing. Life is in a constant movement of change. So to answer your question, friend, Death is and always will be my favorite tarot card. Curate your inner circle. Refine it so none that do not align with you lift. Exactly. Keep your circle small as well. Like, I have a very small circle of friends. Right? I have, I think, 3 people that I legitimately call a friend, and one of them's in the chat. Like, I have a lot of acquaintances, friendly acquaintances, and I can care about my acquaintances, and I do. But friend, the word friend, there are 3 people, 4 technically, but 3 people that I don't share a bed with that I consider friends, and one of them's in the chat. And that's it. That's all I need. I don't need more. I don't need more. You know, friendship needs to be proven. I think people throw around the word friend too often and call people friend that don't deserve to be called a friend. I think it's the same problem that we have with the word love. Like, we tell people that we love them, and it diminishes the value of the word. Right? I don't love everyone. I don't. I can care, but I don't love everyone. I love those who deserve it. That's simple. You know? So, yeah, I mean, people that I follow on social media, they're not friends. They're just people on social media. People use friend when they are in their life. They are not daily involvement or support. Yeah, exactly. And so it's just kind of like, there are 4 people in my life that have the word friend attached to them. One of them I sleep with. I live. She's much more than just a friend, but friend is definitely part of it. And there are 3 other people that I consider a friend, like good friends. One of them's in the chat. Not going to say who. You know who you are. You know, not going to be calling anybody out. You know, and that's it. Everyone else is an acquaintance, right? Now, don't get me wrong. Like, you know, if you're an acquaintance, it doesn't mean I don't care about you. It doesn't mean I don't give a shit about, you know, your well-being or what's going on in your life and stuff like that. But it just means that, you know, that it hasn't reached that friendship level. And that's fine. Because if it hasn't reached that friendship level, it means, you know, neither of us are really concerned as whether or not, you know, we're actually friends. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So, with that being said, that is going to conclude this episode. Today's extra long episode because it's out on Friday. I hope you guys got something valuable, you know, out of this. Um, and yeah, you know, I enjoyed doing it. I hope you enjoyed watching it. And as always, hail thy fucking self. I love you guys. Peace the fuck out. Have a good one.